Hey everyone! Today I'm bringing you all a super exciting movie. It's a magical adventure with a mix of martial arts. Excited yet? Let's dive into today's movie. So what do you think a wizard practices every day? Of course, it's all about casting spells, summoning rain and wind. However, our male lead, instead of burying his head in spellbooks daily, heads off into dungeons to hunt monsters and earn experience points. He believes he can survive in this magical world with determination alone. In the magic capital, at the prestigious Lee Garden Academy, a class on alchemy with magical chemistry is underway. The instructor calls on the male lead, Win, to perform a demonstration. He's in his 6th year at the academy, but when it comes to this simple experiment, Win appears extremely hesitant. Professor Edward asks him to create a small flame to trigger a reaction, but no matter how much he waves his wand, nothing happens. The class immediately bursts into laughter. Professor Edward is baffled. How could a prestigious academy have a student who can't even perform basic spells? It seems those who said Win was only excellent on paper were right. A red-haired boy from afar quickly casts a fire spell in Win's place. His name is Sen, a classmate who often teases him. Professor Edward has no choice but to move on with the lesson, and firmly states that in this world, magic is absolute. Its power, its strength, all heroes are magicians. So those without magic aren't worthy of being trained to become sages. After class ends, Win is once again teased by Sen and his gang. They know he often travels to hunt monsters for experience points. At that moment, Colette arrives to rescue Win. She marches up and scolds Sen's group for ganging up to bully her good friend. Before leaving, Sen reminds Win that kindness alone won't make him a great wizard, and his dream of becoming a magic vendor is nothing but a fantasy. Colette and her spirit cat Kiki stick their tongues out at Sen, refusing to stoop to his level. The teacher comforts Win, wondering why Professor Edward humiliated him in front of the whole class. But Win has already accepted the truth that he can't use magic. Just being cared for by a cute girl like Colette makes him feel like he's already lucky. Flustered by Win's compliment, Colette wonders where his usual cold and quiet self went. But Win was taught from a young age to always compliment girls, so he sees nothing wrong with it. The truth is, he really thinks Colette is cute. He wasn't lying. She quickly pushes Win away and regains her composure, because as a noble lady, she must stay calm and graceful. At that moment, Win notices how beautiful the sky is today. The two of them enjoy the breeze and the sunlight together, shining above. Legend has it the sky is held up by the great wizards known as magic vendors. In the ancient times, when humans were still trapped in darkness, unaware of the sky above, the world was threatened by invaders from the heavens. Then, 5 great wizards rose up to fight them. Those mages succeeded in driving the invaders back into the skies, bringing peace to the world. Magic Vendor is the title given to those who inherit one of the 5 legendary staffs. Colette wonders if today, the staff of the Ice Princess is watching over them. Win is certain it is from the highest place above. The one holding it is a girl you know very well. Win once had a childhood friend named Alfaria. They used to talk about the things in the sky, like the moon and the sun. So both dreamed that one day they would climb to the top of the tower together. Becoming magic vendors would let them witness the sunset with their own eyes. It was a simple childhood promise. But Alfaria, with the talent gifted by the author, actually did it. She became the youngest magic vendor in history. Meanwhile, Win became just another ordinary guy, unable to even chant the simplest spells. But he never gave up on his promise. or the dream of standing beside Alfaria again. Moments later, Wynne was scolded by Professor Walker for sneaking into the dungeon, especially all the way down to the 7th floor. Wynne quickly bowed in apology, explaining he had no choice but to hunt monsters for points. Luckily, he succeeded, so the professor agreed to give him 2 points. Walker knew well that Wynne hadn't given up on becoming a magic vendor. He reminded him that to reach the top floor of the tower, he'd need an enormous amount of points from 3 sources: theory, practice, and combat. Someone like Wynne, who can't use magic, naturally gets no points from practice. That's why he risks his life in real combat. But Professor Walker said earning points that way alone wouldn't be enough. For now, he reminded Wynne to focus on graduating first. He had lost too many points in theory class, and now needed 4 more points this week. But with only 2 days left, Wynne quickly searched for any monster in the dungeon that could earn him 4 points. But there was none. He was out of options. So Professor Walker told him about a monster named Big V, appearing on the 6th floor. No one had managed to defeat it yet. Hearing that, Wynne immediately rushed over and hugged the professor. Outside, Sen had been secretly eavesdropping on their conversation. He was thrilled to finally find a chance to get Wynne expelled. He would ruin his chances. Wynne then quickly made his way to the 6th floor of the dungeon. He had beaten Big 5 once before, so he wasn't worried. But Kiki was terrified. Last time, she almost got roasted by that monster. Wynne begged her persistently, because he needed Kiki's sense of smell to track down the monster. Meanwhile, Sen led 2 of his lackeys to the 6th floor, hoping to kill the monster first and block Wynne. One of them was nervous. The 6th floor was dangerous after all, but someone arrogant like Sen didn't know fear. He hated Wynne deeply, believing that someone without magic shouldn't even dream of being a magic vendor. But just as Sen turned away, one of his friends was suddenly punched by a monster. Another screamed in panic when he saw it. Hearing the scream, Wynne immediately realized someone else had entered and was in danger. He quickly followed the sound to check things out. When he arrived, he saw Sen frantically blasting fire spells at a monster's face. Wynne recognized it. It was the Sentinel Demon, one of the top 5 monsters from the Great War era. The Sentinel should have been on a deeper floor, but for some reason, it appeared here. Sen's magic was useless. The level gap was far too great. Wynne looked on. He knew for sure that guy was about to get wrecked. He was about to help, but remembered how Sen bullied and mocked him at school. He hesitated, thinking of running away, until he suddenly saw the image of his childhood friend Alfaria. She had always believed that Wynne was kinder and braver than anyone else. The glasses Alfaria once gave him, he still kept them to this day. At that moment, Wynne put them on, knowing he couldn't run away. Not if he wanted to be worthy of her. Just as Sen was about to be shredded, Wynne leapt in and blocked the Sentinel's sword. Meanwhile, Professor Edward came looking for Professor Walker after hearing that Sen had entered the dungeon without permission. When he found out Sen had gone to the 6th floor, Professor Walker told Edward not to worry because Wynne was there, and used his magical orb to observe what was happening. Wynne not only blocked the Sentinel's attack, but also swiftly dashed in and cut off several of its fingers. No matter what the Sentinel tried, it couldn't land a hit on Wynne. His swordsmanship was outstanding, combining agility to easily stab the monster from behind. Sen couldn't believe the person before him was really Wynne. Even Professor Edward, watching the battle through the orb above, and Kiki as well, were completely shocked. Professor Walker explained that Wynne possessed a mysterious power like that of a mage, combined with the swordsmanship of a dwarven warrior with sharp instincts and battle experience. He could predict enemy movements precisely. Wynne could easily read and counter the monster's attacks, even though he couldn't use a single spell. In this world, Wynne was a top-tier physical warrior. He even used Sentinel's own sword to block its magical attack. With a thunderous slash more terrifying than lightning, Win struck it down and pierced its head. He had defeated the monster with ease. After the battle, Win went over to check on Sen's condition. Both Sen and Professor Edward couldn't accept what had happened. That someone without magic could surpass real mages. The next day, Win knelt and apologized. For acting on his own, Professor Walker sighed and gave him 10 points. For successfully defeating the Sentinel. And so, the story of a boy who would change the magical world had officially begun. 5 years ago, when Win was 10, he was looked down on by the other students. They wondered how someone like Win got accepted into the academy, despite not being able to use magic. It was rumored he was only admitted to Law Elfaria into joining, so they believed that once she became a magic vendor, Win would be expelled. In the headmaster's office, she handed Win a small dagger, then used a magic circle to test his close combat skills. Professor Walker was shocked, while Headmaster Anno laughed aloud. She decided to officially recognize Win as a student of the academy. The fact he couldn't use magic just made things more interesting. Win asked if studying here meant he could eventually reach the top of the tower, and whether, by becoming stronger, he could stay beside Elfaria. The headmaster simply advised him to persevere, stay strong and work hard. As Win left, she remarked that a sword, longing to become a staff, was truly fascinating. Back to the present. Today in Professor Walker's class, he was teaching how to become a magic vendor and reach the top of Mercedes Tower. To do so, one had to be promoted to High Council. There are 2 ways to be promoted. First, by inventing a new form of magic. And second, by collecting 7,200
Only a
points
few
within the academy were promoted through the first method. So most students chose the second path. However, Professor Walker thought the students before him might not even graduate, let alone become High Council members. So he decided to assign extra homework. At the end of the class, Colette complained about how hard his assignments were, always too difficult. Walker kept forcing them to take mock exams and train magic under harsh conditions. Win had to get full marks in written exams since he couldn't earn any points from practice. Still, Win thought Professor Walker was kind, unlike the other teachers. No one else really cared about him. At that moment, the 2 ran into Sen's group of friends who were bragging loudly that Sen had defeated the Sentinel and earned 10 points. Of course, only Sen knew the truth behind what really happened. As soon as he saw Win, he lost control and grabbed Win by the collar. Colette quickly ran over to stop him, and Sen stormed off right after. Win simply told Colette that it was just a small issue and nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Professor Edward was meeting with Headmistress Acno to request Win's expulsion. She didn't understand why he would make such a request, especially with Win in his final year. Edward believed there was no place for a warrior in a magic academy. The headmistress looked through Win's academic record. His written exam scores were excellent, and his perspectives on magic were insightful. If you ignored the fact that he couldn't use magic, Win was actually an outstanding student. Besides becoming a magic vendor, students also had a duty to grow into knowledgeable leaders for the future. But Edward knew that Win only aimed to become a magic vendor. That in itself posed a serious concern, so the headmistress told Edward to try and find the path that best suited Win. If, in the end, Win couldn't pass the trial, then it would be his responsibility. Edward warned her in advance. He wasn't as kind as Professor Garnet, but the headmistress still decided to grant him full authority. She trusted the man known as the Shadow Serpent Mage, the one closest to becoming a magic vendor, Edward, to fairly evaluate Win. Elsewhere, Win asked Colette to use magic so he could open his locker. She noticed the sword inside, since Win wasn't allowed to bring it to class. In the study hall, Win diligently studied the history of the elves and dwarves. Even though his written test scores were already far better than his peers, he worked so hard because even losing a single point could crush his dream of reaching the High Council. Moreover, felt he truly understood how the dwarves felt. In the Battle of Garzazone, they stood their ground bravely, even when facing overwhelmingly powerful mages. Never giving up, that's how they triumphed over magic. Those were the lessons of Professor Garnet that Win would never forget. Colette spotted a silver hair on his head, and Win offered to pluck it out for her. The two were joking around when Professor Edward suddenly arrived. He asked Win to follow him alone to the practice field. There, Edward said he would give Win a chance to make up for his failed practice exams. Win was shocked. Why was this strict teacher suddenly being so nice? Out of nowhere, Edward explained that he would personally test Win. The challenge: Win must land a single hit on him. If he succeeded, he would earn 5 points. If he failed, he would be immediately expelled from the academy. Edward refused to accept that a worthless student could dream of becoming a magic vendor. Meanwhile, the headmistress suddenly summoned Professor Garnet. She told him not to interfere, just like she agreed to let Edward oversee Win. She also wanted to respect Edward's judgment when it came to evaluating Win this time. They wanted to see if he truly deserved to keep dreaming of becoming a magic vendor. Professor Garnet thought it was far too cruel that she chose Edward as the one to test Win. After all, Edward was the one closest to the title of magic vendor. Though he failed, he once reached the top of the tower. Now, Edward used only low-level shadow magic to fight Win. Yet its power was still overwhelming. Even when he tried to strike, he couldn't break through the professor's barrier was impenetrable. Edward flung Win away and slammed him hard into the ground. Every spell Edward used was cast instantly, without any chanting. Win had no gaps to take advantage of. Edward said he was only using 2 spells. One was fire to burn him, and the other was a shield for blocking Win's attacks. Edward then activated a spell that layered multiple magic attacks. Win tried to run, but he couldn't escape the attack's range. He was beaten to a pulp, and finally understood what it meant to face a top-class mage. Meanwhile, Colette was extremely worried about Win and whether he was okay training alone with Edward. She even imagined he might be getting beaten so badly that he'd turn red all over. Just then, a wounded Kiki appeared and pointed urgently at Win's sword. She immediately realized something was wrong and unlocked the seal. By now, Win had been thoroughly beaten down by Edward. The professor believed that if Win couldn't beat him, he had no right to dream of becoming a magic vendor. Edward started talking about the Battle of Garzazone, where the dwarves rallied 10,000 soldiers in rebellion. He told Win that only one mage was enough to wipe out the entire army. A force of warriors, crushed by a single mage. Which meant that in this world, swords would never defeat staffs. Yet despite everything, Win still refused to give up on his dream. Edward kicked him aside, not understanding what kept Win going. Win picked up his glasses because all he wanted was to stay by the side of the one he loved. Win wanted to keep his promise to Alfaria. But Edward called that a foolish and shallow reason. But to Win, it meant everything. He would do whatever it took to watch the sunset with Alfaria. Just then, Colette rushed in and handed Win his sword. With it, he could finally face the strict professor head-on. Edward attacked, but his spell was instantly sliced apart by Win's blade. The professor ramped up his spell, and Win was engulfed in black fire. His body wanted to escape, but he knew this was his one chance to break through. As Edward launched his next attack, Win charged forward and slashed through the magic. The truth was, the Battle of Garzazone had a second part. The dwarf leader Gaza, even after losing all his comrades, fought on and landed a blow on the mage. That mage was forced to acknowledge the strength of a warrior. In that moment, Wyn believed the sword had surpassed the staff. He charged forward and shattered Edward's shield. Before Edward could react, Wyn's blade had touched his cheek, just barely. Edward reluctantly gave him 5 points and walked away. Colette ran over to Wyn, who had collapsed from exhaustion. Headmistress Agno was thrilled by his performance. Professor Walker praised Wyn for daring to leap into the opponent's flames to mask his presence. Thanks to that, he landed a final strike strong enough to shatter the shield. Looks like Wyn really is a resilient and remarkable kid. On the day Alfaria gave him those glasses, Wyn promised he would reach the tower no matter what. Even if he couldn't use magic, he would still go to find Alfaria. Then the two of them would watch the sunset together. Alfaria was touched and promised she'd wait for him. When they parted, Wyn swore to Professor Walker that it would be the last time he ever cried like that. In a slum alley, Wyn delivered newspapers every morning. Old Dwarf Donald chatted with him briefly, then headed to the pub. Wyn kept working but tripped and fell. Luckily, thanks to his reflexes, he didn't lose a single paper or kiki. When picking up the papers, he spotted a headline: Alfaria was back. She invented a brand new type of magic. This marked her 12th magical creation to date. Wyn kept watching, using it as motivation to push himself forward. He noticed there was a new mission, issued to all students directly from Alfaria herself. Excited, Wyn rushed home to see his friend Josha, asking him to prepare some magic gear. There were no classes today, so he planned to head into the dungeon right away. This mission required retrieving mana stones from Fodok Quagga. The target was on the 4th floor of the dungeon, so Wyn really needed the magical items. Josha could only sigh at his energetic roommate, but still lent him some upgraded magical tools. Before Wyn left, he stuffed a pastry in his hand and wished him good luck. The great founder, Wizard King Messi, once said, "All things in this world are born from Daniel." So the children of magic must explore it with both magic and wisdom. When Wyn reached the 4th floor, the area was already bustling. Many students were gathered. Among them stood out Sen, idolized by everyone for his power. But Sen knew well that these monsters were nothing compared to the beast Wyn had already taken down. Seeing him show off, Wyn worried all the monsters would be hunted too fast, so he hurried deeper in to find his target. There, he ran into some penguin-like monsters blocking the path and extorting a female student. Wyn quickly drew his sword and slashed all 3 in half. He saved her, and she was surprised to run into someone from the physical combat class here. Wyn asked if she was hurt anywhere. She thanked him and introduced herself, a 4th-year student named Isaac from Professor Woodward's class. Their teacher was using Professor Edward's spell as an example of magical creativity. It sounded easy, but leveling up that way was nearly impossible. Another student said, Alfaria truly was incredible to achieve it. Even Professor Woodward had never heard of anyone inventing 12 spells like her. In the Academy's history, Alfaria was considered the greatest mage ever. Colette thought Wyn's childhood friend was truly someone extraordinary. Her friend Rose noticed right away Colette was clearly jealous of Alfaria, afraid she might lose Wyn. To her, their chatter grew too loud, and Professor Woodward scolded them. Colette guessed that right about now, Wyn was probably in the dungeon for Alfaria's mission. Meanwhile, he was having a casual stroll, chatting with a pretty junior student inside the dungeon. Isaac was shocked that Wyn was the same useless student everyone talked about. He asked if she also thought that about him. But Isaac said she would never look down on someone who saved her. Even if he couldn't use magic, she thought he was someone who used his head well. Isaac came here to help with Alfaria's research mission. Her dream was to one day become one of the pillars that hold up the sky. Wynne understood that dream well, because no one really knew what the sky even looked like. What covered the world was a giant barrier. A false sky, created by the incredible power of the magic vendors. According to legend, if the barrier vanished, the world would once again fall into disaster. Students like them took on missions, not just to become magic vendors, but because they believed they were helping hold up the sky. At that moment, Isaac told Wynne she had once met Alfaria. She recalled the time. She was deep inside the dungeon, all alone and in danger, just like earlier. Monsters surrounded her, ready to turn her into the heroine of a nightmare. But when she opened her eyes, all the monsters were frozen solid, before Isaac could react. Alfaria had already appeared and saved her. Just remembering it made Isaac tremble with excitement. Wynne chuckled and took advantage of her distraction. While she was still caught up in telling the story to scout the terrain nearby, Isaac mentioned her detection spell. Hadn't picked up any monsters in the area. But Wynne didn't rely on that. He followed the faint ice traces left behind as the monsters moved. Normally they were less than a millimeter thick, but this one left a large frozen patch. That convinced him. A giant monster was ahead. It could be hiding just outside Isaac's detection range. She asked how Wynne knew all this kind of stuff. He replied that magic is powerful, but never absolute. Especially inside dungeons, he trusted more in his gear and experience, and just then, he quickly grabbed Isaac and dodged a sneak attack from a Frostwalker trying to ambush them. Seeing the huge monster, Isaac realized it was a boss. A high-tier Frostwalker, worth a full 6 accumulation points. With a single ice breath, it could create walls of frost. Wynne asked Isaac to stay back. She warned him that physical attacks wouldn't work. Frostwalker freezes anything nearby, earning its name. The only way to defeat it was long-range magic. But Wynne reassured her. He had taken it down plenty of times before. He activated his equipment and charged straight at the monster, circling behind it. His speed was insane, forcing the Frostwalker to fire ice beams everywhere. Isaac and Kiki rushed to safety, watching the battle unfold from a distance. As soon as the timing was right, Wynne launched his gear and latched onto the monster. Then, he kept dodging attacks while wrapping the cable all around the creature's body. Its weakness, fire and explosions. So when it let out a freezing roar, Wynne stood firm, triggering the magical gear he brought. The fire ignited instantly, racing along the wires coiled around the monster. Then he launched 3 orbs that exploded violently, blowing the Frostwalker into hundreds of pieces. When it was over, Wynne quickly reeled back his grappling gear. From a distance, Isaac observed. He was definitely not useless. Wynne called out to her, telling her they had gathered enough mana stones. Time to head back. Back at base, Isaac removed her disguise and entered the chamber of the magic vendors. Everyone there was on edge. The threat beyond the barrier was still targeting them. Right now, more than ever, they needed exceptional individuals to stop the prophecy. Go turned to Isaac. As a watcher, had she found anyone promising? She named Wynne and nominated him for tower admission. Even if he couldn't use magic. Elno scoffed he didn't want another weakling near him. But Go replied he didn't care, as long as the person was useful. Even a dwarf. The two immediately began to argue. Red-haired Chariot stepped in, urging them to stay calm, no need to rush decisions. The Grand Magic Assembly was about to begin. They could just wait and vote after seeing the results. Once the others left, Isaac whispered, "That boy told me about Alfaria. He's interesting. Alfaria just smiled quietly, still waiting. 7,200 points. That was the number needed, out of 12,000 total at the academy, to be eligible for the upper senate. As the other magic vendors departed, Isaac turned and said that the boy Alfaria spoke of was truly fascinating. She smiled softly, still waiting for him. 7,200 points. That's the minimum score out of 12,000 at the academy, required to advance to the upper senate. That's the strict requirement for anyone aiming to become a magic vendor. Today, a mock battle against mechanical golems was being held. For Sen's fire magic and Colette's earth spells, they were easy targets. Sen's current accumulated score stood at 9,889. Colette's was 7,340. Win, unfortunately, was at a disadvantage because swords were not allowed in this test. To make things worse, the taunts from classmates distracted Win and got him slammed by a golem. Meanwhile, the other students used their powerful magic to easily dismantle the golems into piles of scrap. The blonde girl using lightning magic was Lihana. Her current score was 10,100. And the blue-haired boy who wielded wind magic was Weena. He had an accumulated score of 10,075. Among all the students, the boy with ice magic stood out the most. His frost magic created icy flowers all over the golem's body. With just one command from him, the entire golem froze instantly. His name was Julius. His current total score was 10,048. He walked up to the two students ranked above him, Weena and Lahana, determined to surpass them this time. Julius tried to throw down an ice flower like a challenge glove, but it was instantly torn apart by Weena's wind magic. The three of them were the academy's top individuals, each with scores over 10,000. The score was a measure of each student's ability. Win felt extremely self-conscious about his score. Graduating was already hard enough, let alone aiming for the Senate. Even in his final year, Win had only 5,405 points. Kiki came over to comfort him, but grew annoyed seeing Julius approach. Julius scoffed, telling Win he was blocking his view. Two students behind him chimed in, trying to flatter the upcoming magic festival. In the cafeteria, Colette urged Win to give it his all to get scouted during the magic festival. Reaching the Senate seemed impossible, that there were cases where people got to the tower without 7,200 The magic festival points. Only happened once every 2 years. Various competitions would be held, so top magicians could recruit new talent for the tower. Colette told him the festival was actually a survival contest to determine who would ascend. Among them were the Thunder Scepter, the Spirit Scepter, the Flame Emperor's Scepter, though the Light King's Scepter and the four current magic vendors would all be present, which meant being selected by them was very much within the realm of possibility. Win doubted they'd even glance at someone who couldn't even graduate properly. Colette quickly reminded him of the Watchers, those in charge of assessing worthy tower candidates. Though considered one of the Academy's 7 legends, this year the Watchers would only help organize the event. Still, not Colette believed this was the perfect Win to show everyone his true potential. He joked that if he entered, it would turn into a sports festival. Back in sophomore year, his participation had ended in disaster. He was fiercely booed by the crowd. The memory still gave him trauma. Outside, everyone was busy training for the festival. Colette heard that many scouts from other cities would attend. Even if they didn't get to the tower, they could take other paths, so she hoped Win would give his best performance. Still, Win remained firm in his refusal to participate. At that moment, Colette noticed a hidden barrier behind the locker. It was not only concealed but also soundproof. She quickly borrowed Winx's summoning artifact to break it. Inside, a staircase led deep underground. It turned out to be a secret spot where students were gambling on the festival because teachers rarely checked personal lockers. This place had been chosen as the safe zone. Win was shocked to find Sane also down there. Colette quickly drew her wand, warning him not to cause violence. Win was puzzled why Sen was there. Since he wasn't into gambling, Sen stayed silent, but his two buddies spilled the truth. He was frustrated his betting odds were way lower than the top 3 contenders. He lashed out, drawing everyone's attention. Meanwhile, Colette snickered. Turns out he also had a crush. Where students were placing bets on the upcoming tournament. Since teachers rarely checked personal lockers, this place was chosen as a safe spot. Win was shocked to find that Sane was also there. Colette immediately pulled out her wand, ordering him not to start any violence. Win was puzzled why Sen was even there. He wasn't known to be into gambling circles. Sen didn't want to explain, but his two friends accidentally Sen was bitter because his betting odds were far lower than those of the top 3 candidates. He lashed out, drawing everyone's attention to himself. Colette chuckled quietly, so he liked Lihanna too, just like every other boy around. Sen hastily explained that he lost to them only because his written exam was weak. In terms of magic, he believed he was just as good as the top 3 students. Win didn't bother responding, as everyone was simply enjoying the festival mood. As the afternoon class ended, Win quickly woke Kiki up. Colette asked to join him on a monster hunting trip to a dungeon. However, Win planned to head straight to work, which made her sulk. In the far end of Lee Garden, deep in the slums, dwarves lived freely, laughing after a hard day's work. Win's workplace was managed by Miss Jenna. Mr. Donald often came by to enjoy a few beers. He admired Win greatly, delivering newspapers in the morning, attending class at noon, and working at Jenna's by night. Win had no choice, since he wasn't on scholarship. He had to pay tuition himself. Donald brought up the magic festival, but Win declined to participate. Miss Jenna scolded him to stop chatting and get to work. She told him to learn from TIA, who was serving customers cheerfully. Win was thankful to her for coming to help when someone quit unexpectedly. The dwarf uncles joked that Win alone worked like 2 or 3 people. Jenna had nothing to worry about. Later, while cleaning, asked why Win chose to work for dwarves, even though they couldn't pay him much. Why didn't he ask Professor Gonut to help him find a better job? Win didn't want to trouble his professor. He genuinely liked the dwarves. They were lively, good with their hands, and but more than anything, they always welcomed him warmly. Win deeply respected them. As he bent down to pick up a fallen spoon, new guests entered the tavern. It was Julius and his group. Julius looked around the tavern with clear disdain. Spotting Win working there, he sneered and mocked him. He said someone as useless as Win belonged in a dump like this. Mr. Donald was instantly furious at the insult. Julius was enraged that Donald dared glare at him. He declared that dwarves were a lowly race, fleeing from another world. Living off humans, they should know their place. Long ago, the dwarven lands were destroyed by invaders from the sky, which forced them to seek shelter among humans. Unlike the elves, dwarves were discriminated against, and if they ever opposed a mage, they would be crushed immediately. In a world that reveres magic, discrimination was inevitable. Just as duty served the meal, Julius's gang laughed, mocking the dwarf's bean dish. They claimed it stank of dwarf sweat. Wing took off his apron, left the counter, and walked up to Julius. He demanded that Julius take back what he said. Those beans were grown painstakingly by dwarves on barren soil. They were not something to be ridiculed by the likes of Julius. The dwarves were discriminated against, and if they dared to touch a mage, they would be punished immediately. In a world that worships magic, discrimination against dwarves is expected. The moment Judy brought out the food, Julius's group mocked it. They claimed the beans smelled like the dwarves' disgusting sweat. Win removed his apron and stepped away from the counter. He walked straight toward Julius. He demanded Julius take back what he said immediately. Those beans were the result of the dwarves' hard work on barren land. They were not something for Julius and his lot to ridicule. Not only did Julius refuse to stop, he crossed the line, kicking the plate of beans onto Win. 2 of his cronies tried to jump in, but Win quickly knocked them both out cold. He felt Julius and his gang were lower than beasts. Julius, humiliated, ice magic began spreading across the room. Julius drew his wand and launched an attack. Win dodged and countered with a precise kick, but Julius powered up and pinned Win to the wall. He pressed his wand into the ice flower on Win's chest. Mr. Jonan stepped in, warning Julius he was going too far. Meanwhile, Jusha had already drawn her wand, ready to act. Julius stopped when he saw the look in Win's eyes. With a wicked grin, he changed his mind. He made a new demand. Win must enter the magic tournament. There, Julius could humiliate him before the entire crowd. Win wasn't intimidated. He accepted the challenge. If he lost, he would drop out of the academy immediately. But if he won, Julius would have to apologize to Mr. Donald and everyone. In the preparation room for contestants, Win was ready for battle. The headmaster and the guards kicked off the magic tournament's opening. It had officially begun. All the magic scouts had already gathered. The tournament began with a dragon riding race in Tier 1. As expected, Lahenna surged to the front once more. Everyone predicted it. She was the favorite to win Tier 1. The scouts from all regions had blended into the crowd. Now, their work began. Jack told the headmaster that this year's tournament even attracted mages from outside the tower. Competition was about to get intense. Iris asked to leave early. She had someone to cheer for. Meanwhile, Sen's group was thrilled with excitement. He had signed up for the Crown Assault category because he had received a personal invitation from Colette. He was thrilled, thinking she'd finally noticed him. But what he didn't expect was that Win was also in the team. Colette explained calmly that she invited Sen to join the team, not just to pair up with her. He really made a fool of himself with that assumption. To qualify, their team's total score had to be at least 21,000 points. So to include Win, Colette had no choice but to invite Sen. He was furious, questioning why Win was even joining. Right then, Julius passed behind Sen. Sen realized Win was staring at Julius, not at him, and that made him even madder. Colette noted there must be something going on between Win and Julius. Maybe that's what drove Win's decision. Even as teammates, Sen was clearly bitter inside. The magic tournament had officially begun. Team Tianling assembled on the perimeter walls around the arena. They unleashed spells from all 5 elements and linked them together to form different zones for the matches, each with unique terrain. It would be a tough and exciting challenge for all participating teams. Unlike the other events, this one required teams of 3 contestants. They started from the outer zone and moved toward the central plaza, where the crown was placed. The team that claimed it would win. Of course, it wouldn't be that easy. There were obstacles, including traps cleverly placed around the area. Teams could go for the shortest route, or try to block others. Either way, it promised action and fun. Let the games begin. Teams began moving out from the desert zone. Teacher Walker was shocked to see Win there. He urged Win to be careful. Though mocked by many, Win was determined to win this time. The Crown Assault event had officially begun. All teams immediately faced their first trap. The Jungle of Illusions. The screen showed Team 6, Win's team, charging forward while the crowd erupted in laughter. Thanks to Colette's earth magic, she formed a giant stone fist around Win's arm. With just one punch, Win effortlessly obliterated a horde of robots. The other students were completely stunned. The MC announced that the first one out of the forest was none other than Win. Win staying ahead of Sen clearly irritated him. Team 6 was now in the lead. Trap boxes immediately launched meteors at the sight of them. Win slammed his fist into the ground, raising a barrier. Colette summoned a volley of stone swords. Win then hurled them like throwing knives to destroy the traps from afar. A massive stone box kept firing even after that. It wouldn't stop. Win charged in and sliced it apart with one clean strike. The MC was thrilled to see Team 6 escape the desert so quickly. That was fast. The recruiters believed that Win was a seasoned adventurer, used to dungeon runs. Professor Edward understood. Win had simply maximized his skill set. That's how he advanced so easily. From the stands, Iris shouted, cheering Win on. She didn't care about criticism. Other teams were furious when they heard the news. But they soon triggered the environmental traps, and the hidden man-made ones too. Team 6's lead caused an uproar in the stadium. Meanwhile, Julius was baffled by how Win pulled it off. Back on his team, they used magic to track Win's location. They confirmed that Win's team was in the lead. But it didn't seem to rattle Julius one bit. Instead, Team 6 had entered the final zone, the magic forest. Win quickly used his wits to dismantle traps, according to the rules. The closer you get to the square, the more enemies appear. While sprinting, Win suddenly got hit by an ice spike. Thankfully, it only tore through his cloak. Colette was shocked to see that Julius had shown up. Julius arrogantly summoned more ice pillars at Win. Fast on his feet, Win dodged the attacks, looking for a chance to counter. Essayan, from behind, unleashed fire magic. He looked completely bloodthirsty. Colette warned Win to move quickly. Essayan didn't say a word and launched his spell. Colette raised a stone wall to shield Win. Win was fine, but when he turned back, he saw the entire forest behind him blown away. Essayan clearly wanted a duel, but Win refused, since they were still teammates. Besides, he had a promise to keep to Win. Essayan ignored him completely. He was determined to beat Win right here. Colette tried to stop them, but Julius struck with an ice wall. It hit her hard. Win lost focus and Essayan knocked the sword from his hand. Win pleaded with Essayan, but it was no use, so he resolved to fight him head-on. In Essayan's eyes, Win was so pathetic, he didn't even deserve attention. That's why he was going to erase Win altogether. Essayan launched fire spells relentlessly. No matter how Win tried to hide, he couldn't escape. Essayan was annoyed that Win had only been running. He demanded that Win fight him for real, just like he did against that monster. But Win refused. They were still allies, and he still had a promise to fulfill to Win. Essayan warned that if Win stayed stubborn, he'd regret it. Spectators were shocked to see an unwanted civil war erupting. No one had expected this. Professor Edward, on the other hand, looked intrigued. Meanwhile, Iris suddenly approached Rusty. The two sat down together. Rusty was surprised Iris was rooting for Win. At first, she hadn't cared much, but now, he had her full attention. And that made her jealous of Win's growing popularity. Meanwhile, Colette was trying to escape Julius' relentless chase. She wanted to stop the civil war between the two boys. But Julius refused to let that happen. Annoyed by Julius' ice magic, Colette raised stone walls to shield herself. But Julius' magic triggered one of the hidden traps. It exploded beneath Colette's feet. At that moment, high above, the two celestial officers Freya, Wields and Thuvasaria, were observing the festival atmosphere from above. But now they didn't know how to report back. Amid the chaos happening in the tournament, Sen's two friends felt sorry for Wind. He could have won if Sen hadn't acted that way. They knew Sen hated Win, but still couldn't understand why. He acted so aggressively. Another student somewhat understood Sen's feelings, acknowledging that Sen had his own reasons. But Win, he just couldn't figure out why Sen always got in his way. Why bully him when he had done nothing wrong? Win himself knew he was useless, so he never asked anyone for validation. That's why all he ever wanted was for people to stay away, especially when Sen was the one to approach him first. Win didn't have time to care about others. His priority was reaching Elfaria as soon as possible. Even now, Win kept dodging, while Sion fought with all his might. Sion summoned a flaming bird. As it flew toward him, Win slashed both wings with his sword, trying to use that moment to close in. But the bird regenerated almost instantly. Trying to reach Sen directly wasn't going to be easy. He had to destroy its magic core, to eliminate it completely. Professor Edward was stunned watching Sen's moves, totally surprised. Even the fire element recruiters were impressed by him. They didn't understand what drive made someone with such low evaluations fight like this. Both Win and Sen were already exhausted, yet Sen still demanded, "Win, unleash your full power. Stop holding back." Win didn't get it. Why were they even fighting? There was no reason to. But that just made Sen even angrier. After all the abuse he gave Win still brushed him off. Win said, "I'm human too, not some emotionless thing that can't get angry." But his goal right now was to defeat Julius. Sen shouted, "Don't joke with me." He hated how Win never gave up. Why? Why didn't Win ever make him the target? Why care about everyone but him? Being ignored by Win only made Sen more bitter. Win had no idea Sen thought that way. All Sen ever wanted was to defeat Win, so he could overcome his own weakness. Maybe because Win never asked for approval, Sen had grown selfish in response. Win finally decided to face Cyan with full force. He'd show him what he's made of. Cyan lit up with joy at Win's serious tone. He powered up his flaming bird. Meanwhile, was up against a wide area magic assault. The firebird surged with power. Once he saw its flight path, Win dashed in and pierced through the flames. He abandoned all defense and aimed straight at its magic core to completely neutralize it. Just as Sen and Win were about to settle the fight, Colette raised a stone wall to stop them both. She appeared in tattered clothes, saying Julius vanished after she punched him in a duel. Sen blushed and panicked upon seeing her, but she had to step in to stop her teammates from tearing each other apart. She told Win, "Go on ahead." She knew he wanted to confront Julius. Sen tried to protest, but Colette scolded him thoroughly. Win handed her his coat, then apologized to Sen before leaving. He said they'd finish the fight next time. Meanwhile, the first team to reach the central square had arrived. Unsurprisingly, it was Julius's Team 9. At the same time, atop the tower, Elfaria sat with her eyes closed, deep in thought. Actually, she was just dozing off. And so, the Vice Guild Master flicked her on the head to wake her up, then proceeded to lecture her, telling her to be more aware of her status as a magic vendor, and not to nap while looking down from the tower. Sarissa brought Elfaria a report on the elite candidates under observation. Among them was none other than Julius. Thanks to his achievements in the tournament, he might even be considered her successor. Back to the battle. Julius couldn't believe that someone as useless as Win had made it this far. He was afraid the whole thing would end like this, without even getting the satisfaction of humiliating him. That just wouldn't sit right. Win told him not to worry, until those three apologized to Donald and the other dwarves. He wasn't going down without a fight. Julius then released a mist to obscure Win's vision, but Win could still sense the mana and the footsteps. Suddenly, an ice arrow shot toward him, but Win reacted in time and blocked it. Standing still would have meant getting hit, so he kept moving around the arena. Even with limited vision, he could still detect the exact positions of the incoming attacks. Win leapt high into the air to pinpoint Julius's location. Just as he was about to land a final blow, a fourth attack suddenly launched at him. Julius laughed maniacally, asking, "What the hell are you doing, Win? We haven't even moved yet." As the mist cleared, multiple versions of Julius appeared. Everyone was shocked beyond belief. Four Julius's closed in on Win, then exploded all at once. Win's body was sealed in ice, except for his head. What Julius used was one of the 12 spells, originating from Elfria herself. Win wondered how Julius could even use it. That Julius just laughed and said, "Because I'm a genius." Julius had learned it all through his own research. Win, enraged, shattered the ice. After hearing Julius declare he'd defeat Elfaria and take over as magic vendor, he charged straight at Julius, but the clones made the fight difficult. Julius boasted he could freely control the clones and their spells, then created an ice cage to trap Win inside completely. No matter what, Win couldn't break free from that prison. Julius then slammed a massive ice block onto Win's head. Everyone watching was forced to acknowledge his strength. Julius proudly proclaimed to the watching scouts that he would soon inherit the title of Magic Vendor. The crowd cheered wildly. Julius was using Win as a prop to boost his image. But suddenly, the ice block behind him shattered. Win stepped out, saying thanks for cooling his head off. His bad habit whenever someone touches his crush. He loses all rational thought. Julius, furious, attacked with magic but Win suddenly appeared from behind and took down 2 of his teammates. Win had hidden himself in the chaos of the attacks to stealthily strike them down, just like when he fought Professor Edward. Julius's clones suddenly shattered, because the ones controlling them were actually his 2 teammates. Win remarked that this spell only let Julius brush against the toe of Elfaria's greatness. So what was he being arrogant about? Those words turned Julius beet red with rage. Elfaria said what she needed wasn't a successor, but a strong companion like a sword at her side. In truth, Julius's wasn't under his full control. That's why he needed his 2 teammates to help. Exposed as a faker, the Academy's flashiest show-off, Julius was humiliated. He swore to freeze Win's mouth shut. He created more ice clones and launched them all at once. But without teammates, Julius could only control 1 clone at a time. Still, Julius believed Win would never find the real one. But to his surprise, Win charged straight at him, slashing with his sword. Julius had to throw up a barrier to block it, but still took an ice shard to the gut. Turns out Win had found the real body by tracking the temperature. Julius was in disbelief, refusing to accept that someone like Win could outsmart his mighty ice magic. But the truth was brutal, and Win had exposed it all. Julius was shocked to hear his skills were on par with Elfaria when she was just 2. Enraged, Julius summoned 8 clones, determined to crush Win with everything he had. Win apologized to him, saying he'd already been sparring with Elfaria since he was little. That made Julius so mad he nearly coughed blood. He hurled ice shards furiously at Win. Win dodged while slicing down the clones one by one. Julius tried to flee, but Win's speed was too overwhelming, smashing his clones with ease. Like a mosquito fleeing a storm, Julius ran, but Win flew in with his fist, planting a barrage of kisses on Julius's cheek. 10 or more punches. It sent Julius crashing into the wall, knocked out cold. Everyone was stunned. Win had defeated someone with over 10,000 points. Colette ran over joyfully. No one could stop Win now. But Crow, an opportunist from Team Attack, had seized the chance to swoop in ahead of them. It seemed cheap, but it was still within the rules. No one could say a word. That evening, Mr. Donald and the Dwarf Tribe threw a feast for Win to celebrate his victory. Professor Walker was invited and deeply grateful that everyone supported Win. After a few drinks, the guests were tipsy, but Win and Donald kept drinking cheerfully. Donald asked if any scouts had taken an interest in him. Colette sighed. Not a single one, because Win and Sen had fought each other and came out empty-handed. Rusty showed up, asking where Sen was. Win had invited him, but he arrogantly refused to come. Dommel didn't mind after all. Win had already won. And they'd received a sincere apology from Julius, who was now scrubbing dishes at the dwarf's tavern to make up for the damage. All his fault. The academy was now anxious. They'd soon have to form parties for the week-long exploration at Dan Yuan. A whole week. If only they got grouped with the top 3, they'd feel a lot safer. Just then, 2 students asked Win if he wanted to join their dungeon team. Win was stunned, completely caught off guard. But it didn't stop there. Others started coming to ask the same. Everyone wanted Win in their party. After the tournament, his strength had finally been recognized by everyone. Now, he was being swarmed with offers. Colette rushed over to stop them and declared these were the same people who used to mock Win. Why the sudden change of heart? But Win looked thrilled to be finally invited to join a party. One girl accused Colette of just wanting to keep Win all to herself. She grabbed Win's hand and invited him to the dungeon. Colette snapped in jealousy, pushing the girl away and saying Win already had plans with her tomorrow. They'd be going shopping together. That night, couldn't study at all. Her mind kept replaying the morning's events. Elsewhere, after learning that Win was going shopping instead of dungeon crawling, Rusty was visibly annoyed. Looks like a big jealousy showdown is coming. Exciting, isn't it? The next day, Colette was already at the plaza early in the morning. Not long after, Win showed up too. Seeing how handsome he was, just like a movie star, Colette was momentarily dazed. Win had meant to arrive early, but she had still beaten him to it. He couldn't stop staring at her. She shyly asked what he was staring at. Win smiled brightly and said she looked beautiful today. She looked completely different from her usual self. Win's compliment caught her totally off guard. But the joy didn't last long. Rusty suddenly appeared and made the mood awkward. The atmosphere grew tense. Turns out after hearing Win would go shopping, Rusty asked to come along. Thinking it'd be more fun with more people, Win agreed. Before Colette could even react, Rusty grabbed Win's hand, clutching it intimately like some clingy side chick. Every time Colette tried to get close to Win, Rusty would jump in first. Though she was fuming, there was nothing Colette could do. She could only stand from afar, watching the dog food couple unfold. Not until the two were alone again did Colette finally ask who that Rusty guy was. Why is he always sticking to you like that? Win had no idea what she was talking about, but he was sure of one thing: Rusty was a guy just like him. Sure, they were a bit physically close, but that's just how Rusty had always been since they met. Speak of the devil. Rusty came over with 2 drinks for Win and Colette. When asked why he didn't get one for himself, Rusty said he'd share Win's to strengthen their bond. Then Rusty urged Win to go get his sword serviced. Now it was just the 2 of them. Colette looked Rusty in the eye. She bluntly asked if he had feelings for Win. Did he? Rusty didn't hold back. He admitted he loved Win more than anyone else. Even more than Colette ever could. Colette refused to back down. She said that up until 4 years ago. She and Win used to cuddle all the time. But she admitted defeat since Rusty had apparently bathed him every night. Meanwhile, Win and Kiki were headed to the blacksmith when Lahana appeared. She was a top student known as the perfect lady. In other words, Win's complete opposite. Lahana asked him to come with her for a bit. She led him to a tea room, where the top 3 students were already waiting. Inside the room, she proposed the 5 of them form a team to conquer the dungeon together. Cyan immediately objected. Julius also didn't understand her intention. Win was even more confused. Why bring him here to such a dangerous place? Turns out Lahana was just clueless. Just then, as Cyan was about to make a move, Loria conjured a garden illusion. Lahaina explained she wanted to gather the best mages to prepare for the tournament. Win had performed the best at the festival, so he caught her eye. She said he was the missing piece to conquering Daniel. Julius was skeptical since Win couldn't even use detection magic. Sion didn't want to team up again either. Gunnar thought their objections were just sour grapes. Since Win beat them both, he had dwarf strength and monster speed. Not his type, but Gunnar admitted Win beat both San and Julius using just his sword. So what if Lahaina outscored him? Don't get cocky. Lahaina admitted she was using them to climb the tower as team leader. She just wanted everyone's recognition. Then, she told them to drop their 4 coins into a cup. If they agreed her decision was beneficial, 4 of them did. Only Win remained. A few minutes later, Win returned to Rusty and Colette. But he wasn't holding his sword. The 2 of them panicked and searched everywhere. Win quietly sat down and said, for the upcoming real combat tournament, he'd be teaming with Lahaina's crew. Truth is, many who entered the competition never returned. Even though teachers were stationed inside the dungeon, death still happened. Professor Edward warned them not to be reckless. It's true, many who entered this trial never returned. Even though teachers are stationed in the dungeon, deaths still happen. Professor Edward reminded them not to take reckless risks. Know your own limits. Soon, the comprehensive combat trial began. Students gathered inside the dungeon. Although she wasn't invited to a party, Colette insisted on going with Win. Rusty couldn't go because he had to stay back at the camp. But he prepared plenty of supplies for Win instead. Before departure, Professors Wagner and Edward offered final instructions. The event would last 1 week. Unlike any previous training exercise, they'd have to survive inside the dungeon. Teachers would be on standby to assist immediately to protect the students. The combat trial officially began. Everyone rushed in together. Each student dashed forward at full speed. Gunnar used wind magic to boost their movement. Everyone landed safely except Win. As always, he had a knack for standing out. Like always, suddenly, a horde of demon ants appeared, numerous and aggressive. Win ready to fight, but Luna said it wasn't necessary. Lahaina stepped forward and wiped out the swarm with a single lightning spell. Lahaina's family were knights. She was a skilled warrior too. Before Win could act, his teammates had already taken care of everything. Their detection range far exceeded Win's instincts. By the time he reacted, the enemies were already down. He barely managed to kill one before Gunnar swept the rest away with a tornado. Gunnar remarked Win was more useless than expected. He doubted Lahaina's judgment. But Lahaina still had faith in Win, though her comments increasingly highlighted his flaws. It felt like praise and criticism mixed. Julius used a mana-absorbing wand to score points. The academy had a point system to track whether students earned enough to pass. Those like Win who couldn't gather 1-0 had to bring back items to be awarded any points. Otherwise it didn't count. That's why his party disliked him, especially Sen. He told Win to stop embarrassing their group. Even so, Win stayed optimistic. He tried to help in his own way. His teammates were just too good. He barely had room to shine. One day passed. Lahaina suggested they rest for the night. To stay safe, Gunnar cast a firewall illusion around them. For protection. Though only an illusion, the sudden flames would scare off monsters. Win shared his rations with everyone in the party. Each person accepted his offering. Except he told Win to leave it on the ground and not get close. He only touched those he personally acknowledged. Colette shouted angrily, but Gunnar declared they were mages, and he was an elf. so just accept it. In Guna's eyes, only Lahanna was worthy. To him, elves like him, though different like dwarves, practiced respected and noble magic. They were proud and held strong cultural pride. After dinner, Lahanna shared the next plan. Their ultimate target was Nabros the Flame Fiend, worth a bounty of 110 points. Only one exists. It's the floorkeeper of level 10. Lahanna likely formed this party specifically to defeat Nabros. She wanted to prove that she could defeat a 110,000 point monster, so she was saving mana for the coming fight. Meanwhile, a massacre had already occurred on the 10th floor. A cloaked figure asked a headless man if he'd taken care of the ones above. He used magic to respond. Too much trouble, so I sent them ahead. A chilling reply. Soon after, Lahanna's team arrived on the 10th floor. Strangely, they saw no enemies, just corpses. Clearly, they weren't the ones who did this. Wynne noticed there were no traces of magic at all. The monsters had been torn apart by brute strength alone. They moved forward, but were shocked when they finally came face to face with Albus. It had already been killed. Sensing danger in the air, Lahanna told everyone to use map scanning skills. But nothing turned up. Wynne closed his eyes, focusing his senses. Thankfully, in that split second of peril, he was able to sense the monster lurking above them. Luna hadn't even grasped what was happening before the creature smacked her unconscious. The others tried to launch a magical attack, but before they could react, the monster slammed its fist into the ground. The impact pulled them all down. The shockwave was so massive, it reached even the first floor. Luckily, Wynne managed to catch Guna mid-fall, or else he would have been done for. They had landed on the 11th floor, a place outside the Academy's jurisdiction. It was dangerous. Only advanced mages were allowed to enter here. Floors 11 through 15 were incredibly complex, like a labyrinth. Lahanna warned Colette that being separated on the 11th floor was extremely dangerous. If they didn't regroup soon, they'd be swallowed whole by the dungeon. Suddenly, a shocking vision appeared. A crowd was berating a young boy, calling him useless. He couldn't use magic on his soul at all. That boy was Guna. Even his best friend said he was a disgrace to the elf race. She said someone so useless didn't deserve to have hands. It turned out to be just a nightmare. He woke up to find Wynne battling monsters nearby. Seeing Guna awake, Wynne rushed over kindly to help dress his wounds. But Guna stayed as proud as ever. He pushed Wynne's hand away without a word of thanks. He told Wynne to just hand over the supplies so he could do it himself. Some people just don't know how lucky they are. As the arrogant elf patched himself up, Wynne was already thinking about their next move. Most of their gear was destroyed. All he had left were 3 useful items. They still had some food and water. Colette probably had a similar amount, maybe enough for 2 days. But with how brutal the 11th floor was, they might last just 1 more day. There were 2 schools of thought now. Wynne wanted to regroup with Colette's team. Guna, on the other hand, insisted they wait for rescue. Wynne firmly replied, "If we don't act, we'll die." And as long as that monster remained on the 10th floor, no rescue would ever arrive in time. Things weren't looking any better above. She reported to Mr. Walker that the base camp was being destroyed by a monster horde. Mr. Walker received the urgent message. Even teachers were being slain. He suspected someone was orchestrating all this. Edward rushed in, calling for an emergency full-scale trial. All students were now in mortal danger. Rusty overheard every word of their conversation. Meanwhile, Guna had barely walked a few steps before using detection magic again. Wynne warned him not to overuse it or he'd exhaust himself. But Guna was terrified of a sneak attack. He couldn't understand how Win could remain so calm. In truth, Win was forcing himself to be stronger. He had been studying runes and enchantments tirelessly, gaining tons of knowledge. And right now, they both sensed the enemy approaching. They were surrounded on both front and back. Luna quickly launched a wind attack. He was stunned to see how agile Win still was in that situation, even now. Guna finally understood the source of Win's strength, his ability to turn the impossible into possible. But that realization made Guna lose confidence. He lost focus, giving the monster an opening. He scrambled to cast a fire illusion to stall it. But the demon still locked onto him. Just as it lunged at Guna, Win charged in and sliced the beast in two. These monsters had no eyes, but incredibly sharp senses of smell, so Guna's illusions were completely ineffective. Guna had never felt so pathetic in his life. Win sincerely believed he was a talented mage. But Guna denied it and declared himself nothing but useless. He had once worked so hard, day and night, but still fell short. He didn't want to be left behind, but no matter what, he still couldn't reach where he dreamed of. He was the only one left behind at the academy for 6 years. Even his own people looked down on him. Illusion magic was supposed to be the embodiment of imagination. That every illusion Guna created was ultimately meaningless. Just trickery useless in actual combat. Even if he ranked in the top 3 at the academy, it meant nothing. Lihanna felt the same way. For 6 whole years, all she could do was watch and admire those who were chosen. No matter what they did, they were still like frogs at the bottom of a well. She once saw a true prodigy. A first year who became a magic vendor. Her name was Alfaria. As for Guna, he had tasted the bitter despair of being left behind, especially when his younger cousin from the same clan became a magic vendor first. They were once very close. He even swore to support her forever. But later on, their skill gap widened more and more. Eventually, the two drifted apart completely. To get back to her side, he worked tirelessly, determined to become a magic vendor. But even now, he was still a failure, deceiving only himself. Only now did Win realize why Guna reminded him so much of himself. She knew that everyone struggled with insecurity. But she also knew one person who never stopped trying, no matter how much ridicule he faced. The monsters here were on a whole different level. Yet Win could dispatch them in an instant. How many battles and how much training did it take to reach Win's level? Right now, Guna was shocked by Win's ability. Why would he try so hard to protect someone like him? Why hadn't he abandoned him like everyone else? Suddenly Win heard a strange noise. Guna tried using detection magic but found nothing. Win could feel this place was spawning monsters. A hole appeared in the sky above. A flame demon was emerging. Luna sensed danger immediately. He threw a bomb to blow it up. But its body was made of fire. Physical attacks were useless. And its magical ability was formidable. This creature was extremely dangerous. Only magic could defeat it. Illusions from the elf tribe. At this point, even Win was out of options. They had no choice but to fight. Win alone couldn't defeat them all. Guna refused. His illusion magic was incomplete. He couldn't do it. He wasn't capable. Win comforted Guna. He wouldn't die, because he still had dreams too. Then Win charged in to strike the monsters. As expected, his blade had no effect. Guna was moved by Win's actions. He stood up and chose to fight using his own strength. But as expected, he failed. The monster formed a fireball and hurled it at Win. This wasn't looking good. Win fought back while shouting encouragement to Guna. He said he truly believed in him. Gunnar resolved to leave the past behind and give this fight everything he had. The illusion Gunnar cast this time was a complete success. He wiped out the entire monster horde. Gunnar fell to his knees, apologizing to Win for everything he'd done before. The two clasped hands and formed a bond of brotherhood. Win pulled out a hand-drawn map. Meanwhile, Kiki was sniffing out traces of Colette and Lahana. As long as there was a trail, he would find them. Sai and Julius still had plenty of energy to spare, arguing non-stop. Suddenly, Sai dragged Julius into hiding. Someone was trying to ambush them, and sure enough, it was those V-girls. Sai stepped forward to confront them. Because of them, he had suffered a humiliating disgrace. He vowed to burn them all for attacking students. Thankfully, the teachers arrived to deliver justice. Luckily, most of the students hadn't fallen to floor 8, except for Lahana's group. The 10th floor is massive. With their limited magic, it's nearly impossible to search the whole place. Walker knows where they are. The crystal on Kiki's body. It's linked to his wrist. Win is currently on the 11th floor. Meanwhile, the two girls are still moving forward. They're running low on food. Even if they wanted to rest, the monsters wouldn't give them much chance. Lahana felt terribly guilty. Her ambition had endangered everyone. But Lex disagreed. The real culprit was the monster on the 10th floor. Technically, Lex wasn't even invited to come. Still, she held out hope that Win would show up. Win and Gunnar had found San and Julius. Though the two looked rough, they had already defeated the monsters nearby. San had indeed gotten stronger. But thanks to Julius, reviving a bunch of clones made all the difference. Lahana and Colette were now in danger. The person they thought was their teacher was actually a headless body. It had only borrowed the teacher's head to mimic him. They were up against two extremely powerful foes, enemies trying to shatter the magic vendor's barrier. If that barrier breaks, a catastrophic disaster would follow. The headless figure unleashed a slash, aimed straight at Colette and Lahana. Win arrived just in time to block the attack. It was all thanks to the stones Colex had left behind, that allowed them to reunite. The headless one was thrilled. Now he had so many heads to choose from. Win charged, but the enemy was too powerful. Before he could land a punch, the headless guy was dragged away by his teammate. No point sticking around if annoying enemies are arriving. Before leaving, he teleported the monster from floor 10 here. Its goal: wipe them all out. That thing's worth a whopping 200 points. Way stronger than the weaklings before. It opened its mouth and blasted out a beam of energy. It swept across everything. Everyone decided to run wisely, so Gunnar used illusion magic to slow it down. But it was no use. The monster even counterattacked. Win had to rush in and help Gunnar dodge. That's a high-level beast, all right. A monster from floor 25 showing up on floor 11. Had to be because of those shady guys earlier. The monster was hunting them down, and even summoned a massive army to assist. That explained why so many small monsters were on floor 11. It was overcrowded. Everyone was physically wounded and mentally drained, causing morale to waver. They had no choice left but to fight, to defeat the Grand Duke. When the monster tribe's leader appears, the Baron, he'll claim dominion over the maze. Only then can they carve a path to escape. The leader must be summoned to floor 11, to plunge the minions into chaos, giving the Academy's rescue team a chance. Julius disagreed. No way they could beat that monster. It was pure madness. But then, when Yuna's new sworn brother stepped up, he urged everyone to believe in Win's plan. Even if Win had no magic. It wasn't just Gunnar. Everyone agreed to fight. Lahana declared him their leader. In this situation, he was the bravest one. He would lead them all. Julius still couldn't understand. Why everyone trusted someone so useless like Win. But Win's plan required Julius' help, or it wouldn't work. Julius was the key. Win promised to share Ilfaria's secret spellcasting trick. Everyone believed in Win's plan. They quickly arranged the formation to destroy the Grand Duke. That monster could easily destroy Julius' clones. The secret technique allowed the user to continue a chant, even if it was interrupted. Otherwise, the spell would never activate. Win taught him how to carry on the chant seamlessly. One clone got destroyed. The other clones were still able to keep fighting. Julius charged into the battlefield, unleashing the last of his magic. Others outside the front line also lent a hand, casting their spells in unison. But the monster showed no signs of damage. Until Julius finished chanting his incantation, they had to distract the creature. Julius unleashed his finishing move, Ice Cannon. But this was no ordinary monster. It caught the blast with a single hand. Time to switch tactics. Now Lahanna dashed forward, using her speed and agility to slip through openings and strike the monster's core. But she didn't expect a magic barrier around it, most likely set by those rogue mages earlier. Lahanna was blasted back, and Win rushed in to catch her. But unexpectedly, he was hit too, shattering his glasses. Lahanna decided to stay behind and hold off the beast. She came from a family that lived with honor. They were knights who protected their comrades. Luna also chose to stay with her. Together they faced the monster. The others wrestled with their emotions. They couldn't let that sacrifice go to waste. Fleeing was their only chance. Cyan was torn. Win collapsed, trembling on the ground. His glasses, Alfaria's gift, were destroyed. He couldn't stop himself from shaking in fear. Win begged Cyan to punch him. At first, Cyan was baffled and a little angry. Win was the one who gave everyone hope. And now he was cowering in fear. So he punched Win hard, but that punch helped Win get back on his feet. Colette understood where Win's fear came from. Unlike the others, who could attack monsters from a distance, he had to get up close to deal damage. Facing a foe evil, bigger and stronger than you. No one could imagine how terrifying that is. Win was always afraid, but he never ran away. That was courage. Cyan, about to flee, decided to fight one more time. Win had to pull the monster to the ground and destroy its wings. Colette also gave it her all. Losing his glasses, Win was terrified. But that fear was nothing compared to losing someone dear. So even after falling, he kept getting up. He could now see and dodge every attack the monster made. Colette helped ensure Win landed safely. Together, they managed to break one of the monster's wings. Saint flew in on his Firebird, looking cool, like a flaming toilet, even with high-level magic attacks. He couldn't bring it down. Suddenly, Win spotted a shard of crystal, and in his mind flashed an ancient contract between staff and sword. An idea sparked in his head. He ran to the sword and shouted to Saint, "Fire your magic at me." He caught that immense power with his blade. His sword absorbed the magic. Win charged straight at the monster. Without hesitation, one strike he sliced it in half. Now, who would dare call Win a useless loser? Everyone was stunned by what they had just seen. Just when they thought it was over, a new wave of monsters came charging in. But now, everyone in the group was totally exhausted. No one had enough strength to hold them back. Just when they were on the brink of collapse, beams of light rained down, wiping out the horde. All the monsters were blasted away. The one who cast that supreme spell, none other than the king of magic vendors himself, the holy light scepter bearer, Aaron Mysterious of Onkenwin. Win wondered why someone like him showed up here. The answer was simple. They had just returned from a grand judgment. While the others trembled in joy at being praised by the Magic King and even knelt before him in deep reverence. Win found himself captivated by the boy named Fim, who stood beside the king. Fim, too, seemed intrigued by a swordsman like him. And yet he's that powerful. Over here, that wicked guy said recovering this quickly was the right call. And it really was the right move. Otherwise, we might have clashed with that terrifying one. Still, we've completed our mission smoothly. Mission accomplished. Time to throw a celebration party. Not long after, a solemn memorial was held. 11 casualties. All were academy instructors. Thanks to the remaining teachers' efforts, no students were harmed. Wanted posters were issued based on witness accounts. But unfortunately, no leads were found. Time keeps moving forward. Though the wounds haven't healed. Still, it's undeniable that Lehana's group ... miraculously survived that devastating battle. And none of them lost their lives. Lehana feels like she hasn't yet fulfilled her mission as a knight. But even so, after that ordeal, Lehana found herself in an amazing party. As a knight, Lehana wanted to express her gratitude to everyone. Just as emotions swelled, her stomach growled. Everyone was caught off guard, seeing her hunger. Colette kindly fed her some fruit. But once she finished one piece, she asked for another. Which made Colette exclaim, "How long do you plan to keep eating? You even finished Winx's portion. Are you always this much of a glutton?" Lehana immediately defended herself, saying melee magic tons of energy, so she wasn't being greedy. It was just the truth. Everyone kept teasing her until she got shy. Back to the main point, Lehana thanked Win. If it weren't for him, they might have all died. Win remained humble, but Julius waved it off, claiming Win had been a burden instead. Colette got revenge by stuffing an entire apple in his mouth. Sen turned to Win and asked, "What kind of magic just devoured your magic like that?" Everyone was dying of curiosity. Lehana chimed in, "I don't think that was magic at all." Meanwhile, Fim was with the headmaster. They hadn't seen each other in a while. This time, he and Aaron had reached floor 49. The prize they brought back was a broken sword. The Mage Slayer, a weapon previously reported. Turns out, Fim's group had encountered suspicious figures on between both sides. The cost? Over 20 high-level mages from their side died. That shady group was conducting experiments below floor 40 and had to be eliminated. No survivors allowed. Fortunately, the Mage Slayer hadn't appeared on its own. The Holy Light Scepter ordered Fim to investigate once more. The analysis was left to the headmaster. Fim warned her to be cautious. Some shady figures were lurking. He also asked why Win had been kept from him. They oversee the scepter, but the sword is his. The headmaster replied simply, "Because Win, as a student here, matters more." His heart was with the scepter. He wanted to climb the tower and become a magic vendor. That left Fim speechless. He'd never heard of a sword wanting to become a scepter. What a strange thing. But the headmaster believed it was a good sign. Something big was about to happen. Fim agreed to let them handle Win for now. But he'll intervene going forward. While everyone rested, Win continued training, shocking Colette. He still had much to learn, but the only way now was forward. Sen showed up, shouting, "Fight me, loser." Colette asked what the heck he was talking about. "In your battered state." Still, Sen was eager to battle Win. They had promised to fight fair and square at the tournament. "A promise is a promise," he said. "If you can't beat me, don't even dream of reaching the tower." Win couldn't refuse, so they picked up where they left off. Colette was speechless watching these two fools. Their duel started right then and there. Everyone thought it would be an epic clash. Until Mr. Wagner happened to walk by and caught them mid-fight. He scolded them harshly. So the duel was cancelled, despite everything that happened. In the end, everything turned out all right. Let's finish the battle we started before. Colette stood there, speechless at the two idiots. The duel between the two guys began shortly after. Everyone thought it would be an intense showdown. But then, out of nowhere, happened to walk by and saw what was going on. He scolded them right on the spot. And just like that, the match was cancelled, though a lot had happened. In the end, everything turned out just fine.